The Kethran Republic had ruled the Outer Rim territories for 800 years with wisdom and grace. Their crystalline cities floated among the stars, powered by harmonic energy that sang through space itself. Chancellor Vextar stood before the Grand Assembly, his silver skin reflecting the panic in his amber eyes. "The Void Hunters have taken 17 systems in 6 months," he announced, his voice carrying the weight of impending doom. "Our defensive fleets cannot match their brutality. They consume entire populations, leaving nothing but dead worlds behind." The assembly fell silent. The Void Hunters were nightmares made flesh, creatures that fed on fear and despair. Their black ships moved like living shadows, appearing without warning to harvest entire civilizations. "What of our allies?" asked Councillor Zephyra, her melodic voice trembling. "The Altarian Federation is fighting their own war. The Cosmic Alliance has closed their borders. We are alone," Vextar replied, his hope fading. Then Communications Officer Nixiel burst into the chamber, clutching a data pad. "Chancellor, we've received a response to our distress beacon. Someone is coming." Vextar's hearts began to race. "Who? Which fleet?" "They call themselves the Terran Expeditionary Force. Captain Marcus Steele, commanding the battleship Retribution. They say they received our plea for aid and are inbound." The assembly exchanged confused glances. No one had heard of these Terrans. Their databases showed no record of any species by that name in the known galaxy. "How long until they arrive?" Vextar asked. 18 hours, sir. Their fleet is moving at impossible speeds through hyperspace." As the Kethran leaders debated, something dark stirred in the void. Admiral Korthak of the Void Hunters had detected the alien fleet approaching Kethran space. His massive flagship, the Soul Render, drifted like a cancer through the stars. "Interesting," he hissed, his multiple eyes glowing with malevolent hunger. "New prey comes to feed us. Prepare the fleet. We will consume these Terrans and their..." Hope together, the Void Hunter Armada began to move, 300 ships of pure darkness converging on Kethran Prime. They had never faced defeat, never known fear. In their minds, these unknown Terrans were just another species to devour. But in the depths of space, something else was approaching. The human fleet tore through hyperspace with engines that burned like tiny stars. Their ships were not elegant or harmonious like the Kethran vessels. They were built for one purpose: war. Captain Marcus Steele stood on the bridge of the Retribution, his weathered face set in grim determination. Behind him, the ghosts of 1,000 battles whispered there. Lessons. Earth had been fighting for survival since humanity first looked up at the stars. "Sir, we're detecting massive enemy movement," reported Lieutenant Commander Jessica Torres, her fingers dancing across the tactical display. "Good," Steele growled. "Time to show these monsters what humans do to predators." The stage was set for a battle that would echo through the galaxy for generations. The Void Hunter fleet arrived at Kethran Prime like a plague of locusts. Their ships defied conventional physics, twisting space around them as they moved. The creatures aboard were amalgamations of nightmare and hunger, beings that had evolved beyond flesh into pure malevolence. Admiral Korthak gazed upon the Kethran homeworld with satisfaction. The crystalline cities gleamed like jewels ripe for harvesting. But his attention was drawn to the unknown fleet approaching from the system's edge. "Scan those vessels," he commanded his lieutenant, a writhing mass of tentacles and teeth called Vexmore. "Admiral, the energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. Their ships appear to be made of primitive metals and composites. No harmonic resonance, no psychic amplifiers. How do they even function?" Korthak's laughter was like breaking glass. "Primitives come to die with the Kethrans. How amusing. Open a channel to their lead vessel." The communication screen flickered. "To life. showing Captain Steele's stern face. The human looked remarkably calm for someone facing the most feared predators in the galaxy. "I am Admiral Korthak of the Void Hunters. You have entered our feeding ground. Surrender now, and we will make your consumption swift." Steele's expression didn't change. "This is Captain Marcus Steele of the Terran Expeditionary Force. You are in violation of Galactic protection protocols. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." The Void Hunter Admiral's multiple eyes blazed with amusement. "Consequences? Little meat creature, we have devoured civilizations that spanned galaxies. Your pathetic metal ships will not even slow our advance." "Maybe," Steele replied, his voice carrying a cold edge that made even Korthak pause. "But you've never faced humans before. We don't run from monsters. We make them extinct." The transmission ended, leaving Korthak momentarily confused. No species had ever spoken to the Void Hunters with such casual contempt. Usually first contact involved screaming and begging. On the Retribution's bridge, Steele turned to his crew. "All hands, battle stations. Today we make history. Today we show the galaxy what Earth's children can do." The human fleet deployed in a formation that confused both Kethran and Void Hunter observers. Instead of the traditional defensive sphere, they formed a spearhead pointed directly at the enemy's heart. "Sir, they're not taking defensive positions," reported Torres. "They're preparing to attack." Steele smiled grimly. "Standard human doctrine. When facing superior numbers, you don't defend. You attack so ferociously that the enemy questions their own superiority." The Void Hunters began their assault, launching waves of shadow energy that had dissolved countless fleets. The dark projectiles struck the human ships, and something unprecedented happened. The attacks were absorbed, channeled into the ship's systems, and converted into raw power. "Impossible," Vexmore hissed. "Their hulls are adapting to our weapons." "No," Korthak realized with growing unease. "They built their ships to fight us. They knew we were coming." The truth was even more disturbing. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for centuries, ever since they first detected the Void Hunters' existence. Earth's greatest minds had analyzed every fragment of data, every survivor's account, every tactical recording. They had built their fleet specifically to counter the Void Hunters' advantages. The stage was set for a battle that would determine the fate of the galaxy. The first human counterattack came without warning. The Retribution's main guns fired. Not energy beams or plasma bolts, but solid projectiles moving at 60% light speed. The kinetic rounds punched through Void Hunter shields as if they were paper, tearing massive holes in their living ships. Admiral Korthak watched in horror as 3 of his cruisers were crippled in the opening salvo. "How are they penetrating our defenses?" "Their weapons are purely physical," Vexmore reported, his voice shaking. "No energy signatures to deflect, just raw kinetic force." But the humans weren't finished. The destroyer Vengeance launched a spread of missiles that split apart as they approached their targets. Each missile became a dozen smaller warheads, then those split again, creating a cloud of destruction that overwhelmed the Void Hunters' point defenses. Captain Steele watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. Hydra missiles performing, as expected, launched the second wave. The human fleet moved with precision born of desperate necessity. Every ship knew its role. Every captain understood that failure meant not just their death, but the death of everything they'd sworn to protect. The cruiser, Dauntless, commanded by Captain Rebecca Nash, dove between 2 Void Hunter dreadnoughts. Her ship's hull groaned under the stress of their shadow energy weapons, but the adaptive armor held. Nash smiled as her ship's boarding tubes extended. "Prepare marine assault teams," she ordered. "We're going hunting." The Void Hunters had never faced boarding actions before. Their ships were extensions of their own nightmarish biology, filled with toxic atmospheres and organic weapons. But the human marines who burst through their airlocks were prepared for anything. Sergeant Major Robert Kane led Alpha Team through the writhing corridors of the Void Hunter ship. His power armor was sealed against their poisons, his weapons designed to function in any environment. Behind him, 20 of Earth's finest warriors advanced with mechanical precision. "Contact front," reported Corporal Lisa Park, her rifle blazing, as she engaged a cluster of Void Hunter warriors. The aliens were fast and deadly, but they had never faced humans in close combat. The Void Hunters fought with claws and teeth, with poison and psychic attacks. The humans fought with grenades and plasma rifles, with tactical coordination and ruthless efficiency. Within minutes, the Void Hunter ship was under human control. Similar battles raged throughout the fleet engagement. The Void Hunters living. Ships were being systematically dismantled by human engineering teams who had studied their biology for decades. Every weakness was exploited, every vulnerability targeted. Admiral Korthak found himself in the unprecedented position of being outmatched. His species had dominated the galaxy through fear and superior technology. But the humans fought with something else entirely: experience. They've been preparing for this battle for generations, he realized. They know us better than we know ourselves. The truth was even more complex. Humanity had faced extinction so many times that survival had become their defining characteristic. They had learned to adapt, to overcome, to turn their enemies' strengths against them. As the battle raged on, one fact became clear to every observer. The age of Void Hunter dominance was ending. The humans had arrived, and they brought with them the promise of a galaxy free from fear. The battle reached its climax as the Void Hunter flagship Soul Render engaged the human fleet directly. Admiral Korthak's massive vessel was a living nightmare, its hull pulsing with organic weapons that could crack planets. But Captain Steele had saved his best surprise for last. "Bring us alongside the flagship," Steele ordered. "It's time to end this." The Retribution's crew worked with desperate efficiency as their ship approached the Soul Render. The Void Hunter vessel's bioweapons lashed out, coating the human ship in corrosive acid that would have dissolved any normal hull. But the Retribution's armor had been treated with compounds developed from Earth's most extreme environments, hull integrity holding at 90%, reported Chief Engineer Patricia Valdez. "The acid is actually making our armor stronger," Lieutenant Commander Torres stared at her sensors in amazement. "Sir, they're trying to board us." Through the viewports, they could see Void Hunter warriors attempting to cut through the Retribution's hull. These creatures were living weapons, their bodies adapted for combat in the vacuum of space. But as they breached the outer armor, they've triggered humanity's final surprise. The space between the Retribution's hulls was filled with a gaseous compound that humans had adapted from their own atmospheric processes. To the Void Hunters, it was instantly lethal. The boarding parties died screaming as their enhanced biology turned against them. "Borders neutralized," Torres reported. "Their own adaptations are killing them." Steele nodded grimly. Humanity had learned long ago that the best weapon against a perfectly adapted predator was an environment they couldn't adapt to fast enough. Meanwhile, the human marine assault on the Soul Render was proceeding with terrifying efficiency. Sergeant Major Kane's team had fought their way to the ship's command center, leaving a trail of dead Void Hunters behind them. "We've reached the bridge," Kane reported over the comm. "These things are tough, but they're not used to fighting. Opponents who fight back." The truth was becoming clear throughout the Void Hunter fleet. These creatures had spent so long preying on peaceful civilizations that they had forgotten how to fight an enemy that was just as ruthless as they were. Admiral Korthak found himself trapped in his own command center as human marines breached the final barriers. The ancient predator looked upon his executioners with something approaching respect. "What are you?" he asked Captain Steele, who had personally led the boarding assault. "We're what happens when prey evolves to hunt the hunters," Steele replied. We're the children of a world that tried to kill us every day for 1,000,000 years, and now we're your extinction. The final battle was swift and brutal. The Void Hunters, for all their power and malevolence, were unprepared for an enemy that fought with the same ruthless efficiency they had once wielded against the innocent. As the Soul Render's command center fell silent, the remaining Void Hunter ships began to retreat. Their invincible fleet was broken, their legendary admiral dead, and their reputation for unstoppable conquest shattered forever. The human fleet regrouped, their ships scarred but victorious. They had done something no other species had ever accomplished. They had defeated the Void Hunters in open battle. In the aftermath of the battle, the Kethran Republic struggled to comprehend what they had witnessed. Chancellor Vextar stood aboard the Retribution, surrounded by the evidence of humanity's violent efficiency. The ship's corridors bore the scars of battle, but its crew moved with the quiet confidence of those who had faced the abyss and emerged victorious. "Your species," Vextar said to Captain Steele, "you fight like the Void Hunters themselves. How are you different from them?" Steele considered the question carefully. "The Void Hunters consumed civilizations for pleasure. We destroy predators to protect the innocent. The methods might look similar, but the purpose makes all the difference." News of the battle spread across the galaxy at light speed. The Void Hunters, the nightmare that had haunted civilized space for millennia, had been broken by a species no one had ever heard of. The implications were staggering. In the Altarian Federation, High Counselor Thymax read the battle reports with growing amazement. These humans appeared from nowhere and accomplished what our combined fleets could not. We must establish contact immediately. Similar conversations were taking place in every major galactic power. The humans had emerged from the unknown regions of space like an answer to prayers, but they brought with them technologies and tactics that defied conventional understanding. Captain Steele stood before the assembled representatives of 17 different species, each seeking to understand these new players on the galactic stage. His words would be remembered for generations to come. "We come from a world that forged us in fire and blood," he began. "Every day was a battle for survival. Every generation faced extinction. We learned to adapt, to overcome, to turn our enemies' strengths against them. When we reached the stars, we brought those lessons with us." The human fleet had already begun establishing patrol routes through the former Void Hunter territories. Their ships moved with purpose, hunting down the scattered remnants of the Predator fleet. It was becoming clear that humanity viewed the protection of civilized space as their responsibility. "Why?" asked Ambassador Kelthane of the Peaceful Worlds. "Coalition. Why risk your lives for species you've never met?" Lieutenant Commander Torres, now serving as humanity's diplomatic liaison, answered with simple honesty. "Because we know what it's like to be hunted. We know the fear of extinction. No species should have to face that alone." The establishment of the Terran Protectorate happened almost by accident. World after world, species after species, began requesting human protection. The peaceful civilizations of the galaxy had found their guardians, and those guardians had emerged from the most unlikely source, a world so violent that it had bred the perfect predator hunters. As the months passed, the true scope of humanity's commitment became clear. They weren't conquerors seeking dominion over the galaxy. They were protectors, standing watch against the darkness that lurked between the stars. The Void Hunters had taught the galaxy a harsh lesson about the nature of predators. But humanity had taught an even more important lesson, that sometimes the only way to stop a monster is to become something even more dangerous in the service of justice. In the far reaches of space, scattered Void Hunter survivors whispered, warnings to any who would listen. The galaxy had new apex predators now, and they served not themselves, but something far more dangerous than hunger or hatred. They served hope. The end.